2020 marks the 20th anniversary of the 42nd running of the Daytona 500. At the time, it was the dawn of a new millennium for the new NASCAR season. Teams were hyped, drivers were hyped, fans were hyped, the live broadcast crew were hyped. Anticipation filled the air on the day of the main event of Speedweeks. Now, before I go more in depth, there are things about 2000 Speedweeks in general that you need to know. The Fords proved to be unbeatable considering they had the faster lap times in cars. Defending Winston Cup champion Dale Jarrett soon found that out. He dominated Speedweeks, winning the pole position, the Bud Shootout qualifier, as well as the main shootout event itself, and finished second in his twin 125. His teammate Ricky Rudd had his moments during Speedweeks as well. He qualified second during Daytona 500 qualifying and flipped upside down in the shootout.
Side. Oh, trouble! Rudd in the wall, hard. Schrader in the wall, hard. Jarrett the winner, Gordon second, and Rudd on his roof for the second time in the Bud Shootout, reminiscent of 1984 when his car tumbled in the air.
Pushing that aside, he led all 50 laps in his twin 125 qualifier en route to a victory.
It's just great to have a fast race car. I mean, I've been coming to Daytona 20-some years, and I've never had a car that run like this. It's just, I don't know what to say, but thank you to all these guys.
There was another Ford driver that was fast throughout Speedweeks, and that driver was two-time Daytona 500 winner Bill Elliott. Qualified third on the day of qualifying, and also scored a win in his twin 125.
Checkered flag is up for the fourth time. Bill Elliott wins the Gatorade 125 at Daytona.
The day after the twin 125s was the inaugural NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at Daytona. The only highlight that fans remember most about this particular race is Jeff Bodine's near-fatal wreck. Despite the crash, the race went on. Mike Wallace would later claim the checkers. Then came the Busch Series race, which had some crazy moments, two of which were airborne wrecks. One of them being Jeff Green, who flipped on his roof, and another being Michael Waltrip, who flipped multiple times. This race was won by Matt Kenseth, who led for 14 laps. With the Busch Series season opener now out of the way, the Daytona 500 was left to conclude 2000 Daytona Speedweeks. The Great American Race, as I mentioned earlier, had everyone surrounding the Daytona facility on the edge of their seats for the new Winston Cup season. It would be a special one considering it was the last Daytona 500 broadcast for CBS, the very same television station that started NASCAR television broadcasting dating back to 1979, being the Daytona 500 no less. Which is another big project I'll cover up at a later day. But in any case, the 2000 edition of the Great American Race would turn out to be the worst race in the event's history, and one of the worst races in NASCAR in general. Considering it is one of the worst NASCAR races of all time, it has to be at least in my top 5. But anyway, we now go more in detail with this snooze fest of a race.
The 42nd annual Daytona 500 is underway. Good clean start.
It takes a while for these cars to get up to speed with the restrictor plates on the engines. But when they come back to the start finish line the next time, they'll be running upwards of 200 miles an hour.
two teammates drag racing down the back straightaway. Mike Skinner helping the outside car there just a little bit. He buckled right up behind the Ricky Rudd car. And you see Ricky Rudd now leading the race as they go into turn 3.
When the green flag dropped, at least from my perspective and personal opinion, the pack provided some great restrictor plate racing in the first opening laps. Ricky Rudd led the field to the first lap, which was the only lap he would be able to lead all day. Then Mike Skinner and Rudd battled side by side for the lead, as Skinner led for 3 laps. It wouldn't take long for Dale Jarrett to show his strengths.
There goes Dale Jarrett for the lead. 3 wide.
Yes, and he has a very good drafting partner there. Bill Elliott has moved into second place.
And here comes Rusty Wallace. 3, 4, break to the front of the field.
He would stay in the lead for the next 29 laps, while the rest of the field was struggling to find the best racing line to keep pace. On lap 30, Jeff Gordon's engine started smoking.
Jeff Gordon is definitely having a smoking problem. His crew chief, Robbie Loomis, said they're going to lead him on the racetrack. They are not sure where the smoke is coming from. They are concerned that it might possibly be a leaking valve cover. That's a lengthy delay to try and fix that, or possibly a minor tire rub. They don't know what it is, but they are concerned here in Jeff Gordon's pit.
Well, he might not have a choice, Bill, because NASCAR will post him the next time around, and that means that he'll have to come into the pits. If they give him the black flag, put his number up on the board at the start-finish line, that means he'll have to come into the pits.
In result of this, the caution flag came out. Everyone in the field made their pit stops. Dale Jarrett would be the first to exit pit road, followed by Mark Martin, Ward Burton, and the Childress teammates of Earnhardt and Skinner. At the same time, Jeff Gordon is pushed back to the track, but multiple laps down, out of contention to defend his Daytona 500 title. Meanwhile, the pack trains are spread out, but up front, Jarrett maintains his lead. Dale Earnhardt makes his passes stick, finding himself behind Jarrett. However, Mark Martin was not going to back down.
Now, Mark Martin, number 6. And battling forward is going to get some drafting help from Rusty Wallace in the 2.
Boy, that's a good help, too. Rusty Wallace has had one of the better cars for the whole race week here, and they're working together. It'll be tough for Earnhardt right now to pull away from those 2.
Dale Jarrett's going to back off just a little bit to let those Fords catch up with him.
Let's ride with Mike Skinner, the Lowe's cam.
Rusty Wallace didn't quite get by Earnhardt. Now Ward Burton coming up there, number 22, might give him a shove, and does. Shoots Wallace up into 3rd place. So Mark Martin has replaced Bill Elliott in that 2nd position before the caution. 2 of the same 3 cars are running up there, DJ and Rusty Wallace.
With Earnhardt slowly fading back, Martin held on to 2nd. After the course of 44 laps, there are only 5 lead changes. Average speed so far is 168.095 miles per hour, and so far no cars had DNF'd. The first train of cars pull away from the second pack by 6 seconds. Fast forward to lap 50 as Bill Elliott eases off a little bit to cool off the engine, as it was slowly overheating. Restrictor plates were already taking its toll on many competitors, with drivers drafting behind one another for a long period of time. The engine temperature increases more and more and gets hotter and hotter. At Daytona or Talladega, it's quite common, and drivers normally run flat out and wide open. Ned Jarrett and Buddy Baker will spare you more details.
And there is a difference in driving when we talk about restrictor plate tracks. They only run restrictor plates on the engines here at Daytona and at Talladega, reducing the horsepower by at least a couple hundred, and there is a difference in the driving. But
it is that. You have to keep it wide open all the way around the racetrack. You notice you never hear the RPMs go up or down.
Due to engine problems, Bobby Hamilton from Morgan McClure Racing was the first to retire. 6 laps later, Mike Bliss ran out of gas. shortly after Mark Martin fell off the pace.
Mark Martin is off the pace. He's headed for the pit area right now. He dropped back on the back straightaway at a very unusual place coming out of turn 2.
The problem is Mark just came over the radio and hollered simply, bad tire, bad tire. He has an equalized tire. They have told him check the brakes at the head of pit road. Remember, he hit one of his crew members last weekend. Here he comes. This is a decidedly unscheduled pit stop. He would prefer to have come in with somebody to help him get going, someone to draft with when this pit stop ended. That did not happen. This will also put Mark Martin out of sequence. Unscheduled pit stop. 4 tires on. He's gone 17.2 seconds.
And it'll put him a lap down too, Dick. He's coming out of the pits now as the leaders come off of turn 4.
Meanwhile, the first cycle of green flag pit stops would take place on the 85th lap, with Ward Burton being the first to come in. Bad news for Jeremy Mayfield, as he gets a time penalty for speeding on pit road. But he wasn't the only one having bad luck. Here's how Tony Stewart's went.
His pit, as is his teammate Bobby Labonte in front of him. Stewart stopped just a bit short because the 31 of Skinner had already pitted. That ensured he would not get blocked in. Oh, Stewart has stalled the car on pit road. Oh, and now he's hit a tire. He is pushing a tire up pit road. He's wiggling the car, trying to get rid of that tire. He's still got it. It's finally gone. Oh, a tough break for Tony Stewart. Tough break. Push that tire all the way up pit road.
Nice look what that will do to the front valence, the front spoiler on Tony Stewart's car.
Boy, you know, when you do that, you pick that tire up and there's so much friction there. 9 out of 10 times it'll bend the middle part of that valence in, and that makes the car very hard to drive.
While busy chaos was going on in the pits, Martin makes a comeback from being a lap down to the race lead, ahead of Dale Jarrett, Rusty Wallace, Michael Waltrip, and Ward Burton. Jerry Nadeau, with a new ride in the number 25 for Hendrick Motorsports, suffers a mechanical failure and fades back. Past the halfway point, Martin still held on to the lead. Out of all the races in his career, this prestigious event counted the most.
I want to win every race that I enter, and my whole team feels the same way. And there's a lot of effort. The last 3 months has been focused right squarely on the Daytona 500. The only problem with that is we've had another 50 race teams that are doing the same thing. So it's a very competitive race, and there will only be one winner.
On lap 117, Michael Waltrip almost lost it, but manages to save it. Past lap 120, as crew chiefs had strategies planned out for the closing laps.
Jimmy Pennick is crew chief for Mark Martin, who's leading the race. We're well after the halfway point. You're in the lead. Now what?
Well, now we got to watch our fuel mileage. We want to try to do this one more stop. We had to come in early because we had a cut tire, but we're looking at it pretty close here. We might be able to do it in one stop and stretch this run here.
Robin Pemberton, crew chief for Rusty Wallace. Okay, Robin, what are you guys going to do now?
Pit when it's time to pit. Unfortunately, got a little bit off on the pit stop. 2/10 on pit road costs us that much time on the racetrack, you know, so we're going to pit somewhere between 145 and 150, and Mark's got to drop off, so the 88's going to be a little bit in trouble by himself for a little bit. So he's got a good car. We got to make all the right moves right now to capitalize on it.
Kevin, you tell me that these long green flag runs change the handling on the car. The car's better at the beginning of the run than the end of the run. Can you fix that?
We're working towards that direction. We're still just getting a little bit too tight the longer we run, and in the next stop, we're going to make a couple adjustments to see if we can't help that.
Further down the field, let's see how fast Ken Schrader is currently going.
Telemetry on board Schrader's Pontiac.
185 there as he comes off the corner, 186, 87 as they go through the dog leg here in the front straightaway, 191, 92. But we saw...
Do I hear 94?
No, but we saw numbers 195 when they were on fresh tires. That's the point I was making.
Normally, the front part of the straight.
As the front runners cross the line to complete lap 131, the caution comes out for the second time as Joe Nemechek's engine expires. The field comes down pit road, making what seems to be their final stop for most competitors.
Look for pit road to be a feeding frenzy.
Oh yeah, it's feeding time at the zoo here, and a lot of adjustments on these cars as they head down pit road.
Now the pressure goes on the pit crews to try to get their driver out first.
And Jimmy Fennick has just guided his driver down pit road, telling him exactly how far away he was. They are tearing the plastic off the windshield. That'll give him a clear view for the rest of this race. Darrell Shaheen.
4 tires in fuel for both Rusty Wallace and Dale Jarrett. Rusty Wallace was pushing a little bit coming off of turn 4. A little slow on the left rear for Rusty Wallace, but they get it fixed. They'll make an air pressure adjustment to Rusty Wallace. Bill Siemens.
Dale Earnhardt is in, Dale Earnhardt is out. They put 4 tires on the car and added more tape to the front of that car. Kevin Hamlin said they hope that'll give it a little bit more downforce and correct that aero push they've been experiencing.
Martin merges off the pit lane first, followed by Dale Jarrett, Bobby Labonte, Rusty Wallace, and Jeff Burton, which are the top 5. At least, Bobby was in third until he had to go back to his pit to serve a stop-and-go penalty. Reason being is that one of the tires rolled out from the pit box across pit lane. But it wasn't the only one that encountered a mishap. Dale Earnhardt Jr. left his pit box in the wrong gear, costing him time and positions. At this rate, chances of winning the 500 in just his rookie debut was now all gone. Same goes for his father for that matter, struggling with the downforce and aerodynamic package. Even the slight adjustments to the track bar wasn't enough to keep up with the leaders. Race goes back to green with 63 laps remaining. Martin and the fast forwards hold on to position. Behind them, the pack tightens up. Behind Martin and the others, there was one particular driver that was slowly working his way to the front. That driver was Johnny Benson, who didn't have a sponsor until the morning of the big race. With less than 55 to go, he finds himself in 9th place. Passing the 8 opponents in front of him, especially Jarrett and Martin, won't be easy. His best bet was a caution to come out, which will hopefully give him a shot to get that clean air and into the lead. Further down the pack, Steve Park has overheating issues. When that happened, Benson was slowly closing the gap. The third caution would eventually come out on lap 155. This is where the pressure and the stress really starts to kick in on both the teams and drivers. With most of the field entering the pits to make their stops, they are likely to go the distance all the way from there on out without making another stop. In other words, this is where positions prove to be crucial, whether gaining or losing spots. Looking at the footage, you can feel the tension. Okay, maybe too much tension. After this round of chaotic pit stops, we've got ourselves a new leader.
Well, we got a new leader.
How about that, Ned? The 106th different driver to lead the Daytona 500 since the race began in 1959, Johnny Benson.
And he did it by apparently just changing 2 tires.
Now the question is, can Johnny Benson hold on and pull off a Cinderella story? Well, let's find out as he leads the field back to the restart.
Road.
Well, track position is always important, but how will it affect them? They got about 100 miles, a little less than 100 miles to go, but it'll be interesting to see if those left side tires will hold up for top speed during that time.
Well, I don't mind getting in trouble. I would rather have 4 tires. I think now that Jared and Martin are right together, they'll work together, and the fresher tires hold better in the corners and should have better lap times.
38 laps, 95 miles to go. We're back under green.
down. Had that problem with an oil leak early in the race.
Benson deads out ahead of the field just a bit. Here comes Elliott Earnhardt Jr. Oh, Elliott to the outside, and Earnhardt made the same move and almost got him.
And almost got Bill Elliott on the outside there. Here comes Mark Martin on the inside, though, by Dale Earnhardt Jr. to take over second spot.
And Martin, like Dale Jarrett right behind him in the 88, got 4 tires instead of 2.
Now Elliott with a good run off the turn 4, though, shoots back up there in second place.
Boy, he's got a strong car. He came off the corner there pretty much even, and he pulled right on up there.
Now, can Dale Earnhardt be helped to Earnhardt Jr.? Well, down the straightaway, yes. In the corner, they have a little different line.
I think Earnhardt Jr. right now has got to drive his own car. His dad's behind him right now. If he can get some help from him, it'd be great, but he's got to drive his own car.
Dick Berggren.
Well, one of the things that has happened here is some of the guys who took 2 tires not only got better advantage on the racetrack, their cars have gotten faster. Earnhardt Jr. is one of them. His car has been pushing, so 2 tires will loosen it up a little bit, and that's part of the reason he took just 2. And Buddy Baker, you are absolutely right. Jarrett and Mark Martin working together is a result of Todd Parrott coming down to Mark Martin's pit and saying, let's hook up, go to the front, and get this thing.
Here they come. You see them from the Bud Cam on Earnhardt Jr.'s car, right side of your screen. Number 6 Martin, and right behind him, 88 Jarrett.
Now they're running the low groove. That's where they chose to go after the restart of the race. And right now the outside groove seems to be moving a little bit better.
Mark Martin there trying to get by Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think as they go along and the heat gets in the tires, you can see Mark Martin a little quicker in the corner there.
Bill Elliott up there really working on the 10 car of Johnny Benson.
Tony Stewart just ran a whole lap 3 abreast, and here they come 3 wide off the corner in the middle of that pack. Oh, that's close, and Stewart finally finds a space in the high groove.
Boy, just behind them, I tell you what, my hair's standing up. These guys are 3 wide as they head down towards turn 1. This is a real scramble. You're going to find out who has the great car now.
Now, you notice Dale Jarrett is hanging back in 7th place. Knowing he has the fastest car on the track, he has 35 laps remaining to move back up to 1st. If he can work his way back up to the front, Benson would be in trouble. But so far, Benson has the field under control. A caution flag would be the last thing he and the number 10 team would want to see. And sure enough, the caution came out. 1990 champion of the Daytona 500, Derek Cope got into the wall and DNFs the race due to engine trouble. Now the questions are, do we want to risk it and stay out, or do we want to come into the pits to make teeny changes? Remember, during the last pit stop sequence, while under the caution period, most of the drivers had enough fuel to go the distance. In this case of scenario, everyone stayed out and took the risk. Race restarts with 25 to go, and Benson holds on to the lead. Elliott and Martin were hot on his heels. Same with Dale Jarrett for that matter, as he passes Dale Jr. for 4th place. Benson and the Furious Fords were pulling away from the pack. Martin and the other Ford drivers were on the move. Benson, holding on for dear life, has less than 20 to go for that long-forsaken victory. But as I mentioned time and time again, Mark Martin and Dale Jarrett that have the faster cars on track were not going to cut him some slack. Behind them, the pack jockeys for position.
14 laps, 35 miles to go. Father and son.
Martin went high, expected Dale Jarrett and Jeff Burton to go with him. Jarrett went to the inside though. Now let's see what Jeff Burton does. He'll probably go with Martin and leave Jarrett down on the inside.
Focus our attention back to the front runners as DJ makes the pass for 2nd. When that happens, Johnny Benson starts to sweat 10 times more. Then, on lap 191, the stress level was through the roof.
Oh, trouble! Off turn 4, Mike Michael Waltrip goes spinning in front of the pack, and here they come.
4 cars spinning. John Andretti, Kenny Wallace, 9 car. Stacey Compton goes down pit road. Elliott Sadler gets caught up in it. Now they'll race back to the flag.
So what happened was Michael Waltrip came up a little too high in front of Jimmy Spencer. Spencer got into Dale Earnhardt, who gets into Waltrip. They both hit the wall and crashed. Tony Stewart was the lucky one to barely avoid making contact with Spencer, Earnhardt, and Waltrip. Behind them, Kenny Wallace runs into the back of John Andretti, sending them both into the trioval grass. At that moment, Elliott Sadler slams into the side of Waltrip's car. Here are onboard shots from Waltrip, Earnhardt, Stewart, and Mike Skinner.
Well, Daytona hasn't been too kind to Michael Waltrip this year.
Let's watch from Dale Earnhardt. Squeezed up there by Michael Waltrip and gets away with only a little minor body damage. Stewart, how'd he get through this?
Good drive. Paying attention. That's exactly right.
Let's ride with Mike Skinner.
Wow, he had an angel riding with him too.
The race is back in action, but with 4 laps remaining. With that said, Benson had to hold his ground more than he ever had before in order to capture his first Winston Cup checkered flag. Bud Jarrett was right there to pounce, and coming off of turn 2, he was back in first. As Jarrett regains control of the race leading the herd, Benson kept dropping back more and more spots. Coming to 2 laps to go, the caution comes out for the final time. Jarrett maintains position and sees the yellow and white flag, which meant one thing. Coming back to the start-finish line, Dale Jarrett would be crowned as Daytona 500 champion for the 3rd time.
Dale Jarrett is going to win the Daytona 500 for the 3rd time.
Yeah, that ride home is going to be sweet, isn't it?
Yes, it will.
I can't believe it.
Whether it's at 190 miles an hour or 70.
Daytona.
And Dale Jarrett loves Daytona. He's a champion of this race for the 3rd time.
In salute of the winner, Dale Sr. gives Jarrett a little tap on the side.
That's tradition there.
Yep.
He hits everybody that beats him.
Dale Jarrett is a 3-time winner of the Daytona 500. In this 42nd annual running, he joined 7-time winner Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, and Bobby Allison as the only drivers in the history of this race to win it 3 or more times.
Jeff Burton, who was one of the Fast Fords, finished in 2nd place. From his perspective, he explains how the closing stages went for him.
The run before that was really wild. A bunch of guys took on 2, and we took on 4, like most of the guys did that ended up in the front. And I made it 3 wide a couple times to get myself in position. That's a good day for the Exide Ford. That's the best chance we've ever had to win a restrictor plate race. My hat's off to everybody at the fab shop and the engine shop, because that truly what we legitimately had a shot. We never let a lap all day, but I got us messed up in the pits, and we were like 14 seconds behind, and we ran them down all by ourselves. So this is the fastest car we've ever had.
Kinda going off topic here, but Burton finished 2nd in the 500, then later ends up winning at the Daytona facility in the 4th of July race months later. Meanwhile, in Victory Lane, DJ explains his ups and downs on the late stages.
It's just great pit crew. They got me in and out, did a good job. Johnny Benson, man, what a call. They did a great job there. You know, the one thing I hate about the whole day is I told Mark Martin I'd work with him if we tried to go high. He went high, I started with him, and I saw the 99 die below me, and I had to protect my position, and I left Mark out there, and I regret that. I don't tell somebody I'm going to do something and then turn around and do something different, and it was just a matter of trying to protect my position. So, Mark, I hate it. No, that doesn't do any good, but I thank Ford Quality Care, Ford Credit, Coca-Cola, Fleetwood, Motorcraft, Planters Peanuts, everybody that helps do this Power Bar. thanks to everybody. We appreciate it. Hope it was as fun to watch as it was to be out there.
While there was celebration in victory lane, there was disappointment in the infield. Larry McReynolds, crew chief for Mike Skinner, stated, "They're thinking about building more seats here. They ought to build coats cause this stuff is going to put everyone to sleep." You think that's a negative reaction? Here's Dale Sr.'s take.
That's the worst racing I've seen at Daytona in a long, long time. They took NASCAR Winston Cup racing and made it some of the sorriest racing, took racing out of the drivers and the crew's hands. We can't adjust, we can't make our cars drive like we want. They just killed the race at Daytona. That's all I got to say.
As you can probably imagine, not that many drivers or fans were not happy on how the race in general turned out to be, considering there were barely passes being made, lack of grip, weak aerodynamic package, separate single-file pack trains almost the entire race, the list goes on. To briefly recap on the whole thing, it was 3 hours and 12 minutes long, average speed was 155.669 miles per hour, there were only 6 cautions, and there were only 9 total lead changes the entire race. 9. The least number of lead changes in the race's history. Putting that to the side, here are your race leaders by the number of laps led. Dale Jarrett led the most with 89. Martin led for 65 laps, which was the second most. Johnny Benson, who was in contention for the race win, led 39 laps, being the third most. Mike Skinner led 3 laps in the beginning stages, which were the only 3 laps he led all day. Chad Little led for 2 laps whilst the leaders made their way into pit road during green flag pit stops. Bill Elliott and Ricky Rudd managed to score a decent amount of points despite leading just 1 lap. Finally, we take a look at my power rankings based on a certain driver's endurance, consistency, or inconsistency. Driver of the race was no question Dale Jarrett. He did what he could in not only the Daytona 500, but Speedweeks in general. I mean, winning 2 exhibition races, securing pole position for the 500, dominates the main event, puts the fastest lap time, and was there at the right place at the right time in the yen to make the pass on Benson with little time to spare, sealing the deal for the 3rd time in the Great American Race. Even with a wrecked race car in one of the practice sessions, his crew worked their guts out till dawn to get the car fully repaired and faster than ever. They made no mistakes, had their eye on the prize, did everything right, and ended 2000 Daytona Speedweeks with a massive bang. Now, for the driver on the move, I would give that spot to Terry Labonte. Despite not seeing the lead once, he wheeled his number 5 Kellogg Chevy from the 25th starting position to a 7th place finish. Now, don't get me wrong, the horrendous package, as I mentioned numerous times at this point, was the main problem drivers had in attempting to make passes. Along with it, Texas Terry showed muscle nevertheless, increasing 18 spots, finding himself inside the top 10 when it was all over. However, I was going to give this honor to Johnny Benson since, after all, having a sponsor at the last remaining hours before the big race and leading the 3rd most laps, let alone worked his way with the leaders after starting from 27th, gaining 26 spots. But considering he fell out in the final few laps, resulting 12th, this meant Labonte finished ahead of him and actually managed to hang on and score a top 10 finish, which, again, despite not leading the race. Now, the driver with inconsistency, I would give this to Jeff Gordon, honestly. Having to start the race from mid-pack, struggling with the package, finding it difficult to keep pace with the leaders. Early in the race, his engine starts to smoke, putting the 2014 behind the pit wall and getting the car repaired. And from that point on, there was no hope for a comeback for the two-time and defending 500 champion. Merging back onto the racetrack, 5 laps behind, finishing in 34th place. In conclusion, the 2000 edition of the Great American Race was an absolute snooze fest. Lots of drivers, teams, and fans were dissatisfied on how the aerodynamic package played out. When the pack was separated in different single-file draft trains all around the track, with passing attempts rarely being made, it made it even more of a shame. I suppose you can say the only highlight about the whole race is Dale Jarrett's dominance and Dale Sr.'s post-race disappointment. That's all I can really say about it, really. The 42nd annual Daytona 500 is an awful one for the record books. And that pretty much covers it. In other words, that's a wrap for this video project. For those that want to see more of these in the future, by all means, hit that subscribe button to stay updated with new racing related videos, or documentaries like this one. Thought I would do this particular race because, well, it's happened 20 years ago, and considering there were pros and many cons, I thought it would be something to post and talk about. Hopefully it was a big success. But anyway, I'm Calvin Marshall, as always, signing off the mic, and until next time, see you on the other side.
And now, to the man who brought CBS Sports on the air with the first live flag-to-flag coverage of NASCAR racing back in 1979, Ken Squire.
Well, thank you, Mike. And so we finish the first race of the new millennium. The biggest question throughout Speedweeks, to me, has not been who was going to win this race or what car was going to end up in victory lane, but did you ever think this race would be this big? And my answer is, of course it would. In 1965, when this snowbird first flew south to Daytona, Bill France Sr., organizer of NASCAR, and the builder of this beautiful racing facility, told me, come the year 2000, this sport will be major league, right up there with baseball and football. France Sr. sure hit it right on the nose. And since 1979, CBS has been proud to be a part of this Daytona 500 and the growth of NASCAR. For everyone here at CBS who for 22 years have brought you this American racing classic, brought it into your homes with a sense of dignity and dedication, love and respect, thank you for being part of it. After all, it is the great American race.
Mr. Bill France Sr. probably roll over his grave if you've seen that deal.